Hi, welcome to NEK VT Rocks. My guest today is Colleen de Ortiz. Colleen, you work at the health department, but you wear a million other hats too. And as what we're talking about today is civic engagement. How do you bring all the pieces together?
So, actually, it's funny. I came to civic engagement later in my life. I registered to vote for the first time when I was 23 years old, not even 18.
A senior.
Yes. I graduated college, and I have to feel like the political process didn't really feel relevant to me for a really long time. I felt like all my needs were pretty much met, and so there wasn't any exigent need to suddenly get involved in a real way. And I came to it more professionally first than personally.
Yeah.
So having worked at the Vermont Department of Health and being in chronic disease prevention and school health, I see the impact of legislation on policies in our society pretty much every day. And part of the work that we strive to do is to change those policies and infrastructures that work actually against people being healthy.
It's true. And you're a real Newporter, right? You're from here.
Well, that's that's a distinction. I grew up in Holland, Vermont.
Oh, so far
As I make that
away.
distinction immediately. So I grew up in Holland, Vermont, and now I've lived for the last 15 years on 3rd Street in Newport.
Right.
Right at the very dead end.
But presumably you went to high school in
I did.
Newport.
Yep. I went to
North
Holland
Country.
School, the junior high, and then the high school.
Well, that counts from my viewpoint, but then clearly I'm many times removed.
Mm-hmm.
So your background is health, but you're involved in many things that are beyond health. If we define health in just the physical way, but obviously you don't and I don't either. So what are you involved in right now?
Oh, goodness.
Just a list.
Sure. There as an early childhood action group that seeks to change language in municipal plans. These are documents that guide the visioning and planning for communities to incorporate language that embraces high quality, affordable childcare.
So that's why you show up at Planning Commission.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. We have Northeast Kingdom Organizing, which is a grassroots effort, which is really centered on building relationships with one another. So maybe before I go into that, I want to just say, what do I think government is for, right? Because you hear a lot, certainly in the world, about what good does it do us anyway. So
frequently not much.
As a registered nurse, throughout my professional career, I really felt like my hands were tied by the systems that I had to function in, preventing me from really delivering the health care as a professional that ethically I am bound to and morally I feel good about. So I see this essential relationship as humans in caring for one another. So the first and best skill that we have when we exit the womb is the ability to establish a one-on-one nurturing relationship with a caring adult that will allow us to reach our full development. And I see that this essential biological foundational skill is sort of embodied in structures of government, which I see as really a compact, like a formalized agreement between humans that we all work together for the commons, the common good, and that we have codified it and we have legalized it and we have created structures and funding mechanisms for it. And is it still fulfilling that purpose to protect and embrace the common good?
Apparently not.
And if it's not creating policies that embrace the common good and provide clean water and quality, affordable child care and a high quality public education, which I was fortunate enough to have, if it can't do that, then I feel even more strongly as a person, as a mother, as a citizen, that it is my responsibility to get involved and do something to shift the way that we look at government and what its function is.
So you see changes happening both from the inside and the outside.
Absolutely. Definitely rooted in communities and relationships, like it's starting on that individual human level I care for you and you care for me, and so
Right.
I know that you would watch out for me,
Mhm.
and we have that reciprocal kind of relationship.
Yeah.
That ripples out to communities. So
You
starting.
have 4 kids, right?
Yes, I do.
Are they involved?
My oldest daughter is now a registered voter. She voted in her first election on town meeting day last
Yeah.
year. Very exciting. She is a graduate of the early childhood program at North Country Career Center, and so
Mhm.
she is very rooted also in what is good for children and what is
Mhm.
good for the most vulnerable of us, whether it is children or older adults, who are actually one of our most vulnerable populations right now. It's good for everybody.
Right.
And that is the beauty of that.
I've seen some of your other kids at other meetings.
I drag them
It's good.
with me, and they crawl under the table and make me a little uncomfortable. But I'm hoping that I'm setting an example that they will feel bound to follow.
You're also setting an example for other parents, because it's really hard to be a parent, have a day job, do all of the work that parenting involves, and participate in
Mhm.
civic engagement. But bringing your kids to a meeting shows that it's possible.
Yes, but if we had high quality, affordable
Childcare, you wouldn't have to.
I wouldn't have
Right.
to. And so, also framing this in the economic development lens. Are we making investments in things that actually will have a return on that investment in our community? So part of community capacity
Mhm.
and being engaged as a community and having that resilience as a
Mhm.
community is economically, are we thriving, right? And how can we look at that in a model that, again, benefits the economy, but also benefits the humans that live in that economy?
Right. Do you have ideas for what would do that?
I do.
Funny that. Imagine that. Go for it.
Well, the thing, like the foundational piece of we are stronger together than we
Yes.
are apart. And that I believe in Vermonters' inherent ability to be independent and
Mhm.
self-sustaining,
Mhm.
right? Freedom and unity. So the freedom
Right.
to pursue what we want, and then we always seem to have this unity to be able to come together to
Mhm.
advocate for the commons.
Right.
So
People united will never
Right.
be divided. Right.
So what would be really, I think, supportive for our community is to have a regional, local economy somehow to retool the big global forces that are
Right.
exerting an influence on our food systems, on
Yes.
our natural environment,
Mhm.
and to retool that. So how do we create a sustainable food economy,
Mhm.
right, that provides profit for even farmers, which is a pretty revolutionary
What a
concept
Right.
in the global
Mhm.
economy, but also crafting and like little shops, like a very I don't know how to, like a marketplace economy almost, but very regional.
And if we're
in nature, so it's the buy local on steroids, really.
Right. And as an area that is hoping to attract more tourists, that makes perfect sense. It would fit in perfectly.
Yes, stewardship for the natural
Yeah.
environment and tourism and ecotourism, they all go hand in hand
Right.
with vibrant economies and economic development. Because if we take into consideration, how will this benefit us in the long term,
Mhm.
right? 30, 40 years down the line.
Right.
Taking into account how the climate is projected to change and what Vermont's growing season is going to change to look
Mhm.
like. How are we going to make sure we have a
Right.
vibrant food supply?
Yeah. Do you feel that people in Newport and the rest of the Northeast Kingdom are encouraged to become involved?
Yes, I do, because
Mhm.
I think a lot of the work that actually you have done and other community members have
Mhm.
done in attending meetings, and Julie Reboyne comes to mind also
Mhm.
as really putting
Right.
her money where her mouth is
Right.
by serving on Newport City Council as a voice
Mhm.
and being engaged that way. I think it is hard for people in times of great need and
Mhm.
great upheaval to feel that their opinion is relevant, and to
Oh,
feel
welcomed.
we feel that pushback all the time, and to
Yes.
feel that government is actually making decisions for the
Right.
benefit of the commons, right? And we have disenfranchised citizens. We have a lot
Right.
of them.
Right. And how do we change that so that their voices come back into the mix, so that everybody's voice is heard, and that we can work towards the common good as opposed to a top-down kind of administration?
Well, I really, just like you just said, really feel that it's not top down, and that it really is like the energy that you
Grassroots
and I
up.
create, sitting
Yeah.
here having a conversation, sharing ideas,
Mhm.
building relationship over time, knowing that, like, that security of, if I were in bad trouble, I know I could call you.
Mhm.
And I have a list, a pretty big list of people I could call if I really needed help, and I know
Mhm.
they would come. Like, that's a pretty
Mhm.
secure feeling. And it can start to be built at the individual level.
Right.
And I feel like by engaging, we can attack the issue, because so many issues stem from that lack of connection with other humans
Mhm.
in our natural environment, and our lack of relationship with one
Right.
another. And then it snowballs as the institutions get larger.
Right.
And you lose that real feeling of agency, that your voice
Mhm.
matters. But I think
Yeah.
our voice really does matter.
Right.
Certainly in Vermont, and absolutely in our local municipalities, towns,
Yeah.
hamlets, villages,
Yeah.
gores.
We're small enough here to know almost everybody
Mhm.
in our towns, and certainly in our neighborhoods. And strong neighborhoods really can have an impact.
Mhm. Yeah. So speaking of strong neighborhoods,
Right.
on my street in downtown Newport, the Newport City Promise Community is received a
Mhm.
grant, and they will be
Right.
opening a childcare in collaboration with the United Church in Newport. And so that's a relationship, right? And that is
Right.
bringing that community, our community, closer together.
Yeah.
We have Green Mountain Farm to School, all in our little downtown
Mhm.
area, the community garden.
Right.
We have our recovery center.
Yes.
Any number of resources. The Department of Health is just down the street. But we have somebody put it to me, we have a downtown that has such beautiful bone structure.
And a gorgeous lake.
And a gorgeous lake. And we have so much to work with, that I
Yes.
really believe that we can move through the aftermath of the EB5, to really, like, look forward. Like, how are we
Mhm.
forward, like 50 years forward?
Yeah. And to move through town slowly so that we can actually see what we've got.
Mhm.
I mean, you and I were talking earlier about you only shop if you're walking through, if you're seeing
Mhm.
what's there. We only stop if we see the beauty that's there. We say, oh, that looks interesting, and we stop, we pull over.
That's right, because you know what? Nobody spends money when they're driving by a pretty store in their
Right.
car. They spend money when they are in a beautiful, like, walkable downtown where they can
Exactly.
sit and rest and
Have a cup
stop
of
in for a
coffee.
meal.
Yeah.
So you know what I would love to see is a beautiful open marketplace that is.
Wouldn't that be great?
I know, right? There
Yeah.
could be, like, wintertime enclosed stalls and then outdoor stalls, and yeah, I think that would be, I don't know, that's my vision of, like, how beautiful Newport can be. And so every time I drive home up Main
Mhm.
Street, I'm, like, trying to envision, like, oh, how could someone, not me, build, like, this little thing, or, like, what would a little footbridge look like there, or a terraced garden
If we could
along
only
the
win
side.
that lottery.
I know, yeah, but so, and that speaks back to actually, municipalities, government. What is the purpose of government, right? So we kind of, that's what I believe the purpose is to really look after the commons. And if you want to translate it to real everyday things, when I pay my taxes, that is, I am making a commitment,
Right.
like, with more than just, like, lofty ideas. I am making
Right.
a financial commitment to the common
Mhm.
good.
And
And it's
everybody-
not something that, as much as I would really, in economic hard times, would like to have not
Right.
high.
Exactly.
But I open-heartedly and happily pay that,
Mhm.
because I believe in our
Mhm.
potential to
Yes.
come back, to reconnect with one another, reconnect with the commons. And why do we come together as societies anyway? That is our only evolutionary advantage,
Mhm.
really, is our ability to connect with one another.
Yes.
And form
work
protective,
together.
like, groups.
Yes.
So it's fascinating how form and function and
Mhm.
biology and societal structures sort of like mirror each other.
It is fascinating, though, that it's not just protection, because protection tends to close down, and what we're really talking about is opening up. Protection, I think, is a word that makes people shut in. And my vision is much more, let's move out and connect that way, and connect with more people. Yeah. I noticed the pin you're wearing, a little advertising there.
It's pin season, so I don't know if the camera can see it. It says your vote is your voice, and
it's true.
It is true.
And
what percentage of registered voters in Newport actually voted in the water tower vote?
It was very low. I think it was only something like about 300 voters, and unfortunately town meeting day is not much higher. What will it take? Because that's the day when we elect members of our city council or a mayor. It's an important vote. That's our voice, because from where I sit, we don't elect leaders, we elect representatives. And we want our representatives to represent us, not just 300 people who voted.
Well, see, that is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So are we actually living in a democracy? And if
Not if we don't
what percent
vote.
is that? 3%?
Yeah, something
If
awful
3%
like that.
of people are deciding what's best for the whole community, that's a bit heartbreaking.
Right.
More than a bit heartbreaking. But we're lucky in Vermont. We have same-day voter registration as well
Yes.
as automatic voter registration.
Yeah, both of those are great. And the same day is a pretty new discovery.
Yeah. Yes. So we have laws and policies in place that support access to our democracy. And how do we create, I guess, the community will? And I think it is, again, goes back to that relationship when you feel valued, when you feel like your voice counts, when you feel like you have agency to affect the outcome of your life. That is a part of that being invested in structures that protect the commons.
So should we be asking everyone who we know votes to bring at least 5 other people with them?
I think that would be great.
Everyone bring 5.
I actually keep in my office a number of voter registration forms, so like anybody on the street could vote. The town municipal building is, right there. So we're really doing the best we can to make it easy to vote.
Right.
And I think now is a crucial time for community engagement because of the aftermath, again, of the investor issues with EB5, as well as this is a prime time we see education on an even more fragile ground as the months and years go by. We see, are they teaching civics in school? Like there's
Apparently
that,
not.
right? I think it's called government and economics.
Well, that's a whole different
which is an interesting twist on civic instruction and education.
Yeah.
But how do we get more people involved? I think there's some great opportunities right now with the Newport Community Forum.
Yeah.
That is a great, there's a wonderful turnout there. Again, not a lot of disenfranchised people attended that.
More at the first one than the second.
Yeah.
And we'll see for the third.
But I think that the four topic areas that came out of that give so much potential for moving forward. And I am so pleased that the city is wanting to engage in the community visit process and is like listening to community feedback in regards to potential development or guidance around what kind of development do we need to maximize our economic vibrancy in the next 10, hopefully we're thinking 50 years down the line.
And as we look at what's happening nationally, which is not really warm, fuzzy and encouraging, it's going to be even more important that communities become as self-sustaining as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
And we've only got to look towards Washington and remind ourselves, if we don't want that, we better be doing something here.
there's just so much uncertainty, I think, on the federal playing field, that now is the perfect time to really hearken back to our communities.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
It's as simple as shoveling out Mr. Smith's driveway.
Right.
Like those are the easy peasy changes like that we can do for one another in our daily lives. And then certainly going to city council meetings, listening to what is on the agenda, what decisions are being made about our commitment for the common good, which is our tax dollars.
Right. And speaking up in the comments part, and at other times when every opportunity, when it's appropriate to speak up, when you've got something to say, saying it.
Well, and social media has actually been a really tremendous free platform for community engagement. And Newport VT Rocks, the group, has Newport Hopes for this community. And I see that could certainly expand be for other communities.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We have a lot of resources. It's just sort of somehow bringing them together.
Well, I think always that transparency of communication and the government process is really important, because if that is lacking in any capacity, I think what you can find is the suspicion and unsettled fear that we see on a national level when conversations come up. So you and I have disagreed. We have been able to have respectful conversations and not so respectful conversations sometimes about our difference of opinion.
Absolutely.
But in the end, if I called you, you would still come pull me out of a ditch.
Absolutely.
And that is what community is about.
Right. And it's fine to disagree and work through that and find the common ground in there.
Exactly.
Because there's always some common ground.
And that's why Vermont's so special, right?
Yeah.
We're sort of a bundle of self-sustaining contradictions. And I think that historically has been Vermont's path since it was the first republic, and took its time, with this amazing constitution that made slavery illegal. Like that's this is a pretty special corner of the world, and it's built on bedrock. Yes. And I really feel that our tenaciousness and stubbornness can really work for us as an asset. Exactly. Yeah. We're willing to hold on no matter how inhospitable the landscape is.
We talk about our landscape being inhospitable, but reality, Vermont has water, Vermont has many other assets that other states don't. We may think we're the poor relation right now, but I don't think that's going to be true in the future.
Yeah, no, I meant
I know what you meant.
back in the settler times, in terms of inhospitable. But our landscape, we still have clean water. Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water. So again, this speaks to what is the common good.
Right.
We created these institutions and made them legal entities to protect, I know that, but to provide clean water, to provide what else are we provided? Plowing, city plowing, care of the roads, all of those infrastructure things that municipalities and communities have agreed to do via these mechanisms.
We have an ambulance service, we have a fire service, we have police.
We have a great hospital.
We do, we have a lot of resources here.
Newport City is the county seat for Orleans County. But we do have and our landscape is incredibly beautiful. I have lived in other places, but and never been as stirred and never felt as much at home as I do here in Vermont.
Right. We have a lot. And sometimes it's harder to appreciate it when it's really easy to see what isn't here, and when we watch our businesses struggling, and we're struggling.
Absolutely.
Let's get real.
And I think that is everywhere. It's not, as you said, it's not that Vermont is.
It's not unique.
We're not unique. And this is simply, in my opinion, this is simply the economy that we have chosen to function in as a planet.
Right.
Is everything has its set path, like a lifetime. So a battery has a life, right?
Yes.
And I believe the market economic system also has a life. And in our lifespans, we are babies, and then we're teenagers, and then we die eventually. And so the natural end of capitalism and the market economy model in this big global picture is exactly what is happening, which is all of the money in the world is funneled from great masses to the hands of a few. And that's simply the A plus B equals C formula of how it works. But how can we reimagine that?
Exactly.
Right? Because
I think you just exploded a few heads.
Right, how can we reimagine that to actually benefit one another?
Right.
Right, so that small businesses can thrive.
Right.
And that we are, my heart is broken that the comic book shop is going away because I love it. But yeah, so we can reimagine it. And I have so much hope in moving forward that we have the capacity to do that. Because I believe in our essential humanity.
And I think most people here do. And it's finding a way to do that. Finding a way where an individual voice can count or feel like it counts.
Yeah.
And share a vision.
Well, I know one time that we can do that. Coming right up.
When would that be?
That would be on town meeting day. So to come to the municipal building and cast your vote. We have school budgets coming up for approval. You would probably be able to tell me because I am engaged, but I'm not as engaged as Pam is. So what else do we have coming up? There's a meeting the night before town meeting day in Newport City.
But that pretty much is not a place to make change. That's when they tell you what's a done deal.
Okay.
Except that you can vote for or against it, but it's too late for the discussion. There's a candidate forum coming up.
That's right, on February 15th.
Where people can ask questions and figure out who they want to vote for. And that's important. It's important who sits on our city council. And any other public body. There are vacancies on the school boards.
Yes, indeed. I've signed a few petitions for school board
candidates. Yeah, so have I. And that's, again, a really important place to be.
Yeah, it is, because you're making financial decisions that affect
everybody.
Child.
And everybody.
And everybody, because it affects families and parents and grandparents, because we have a lot of grandparents who are raising school-age children.
It affects everybody because we all pay school taxes, either directly or indirectly.
Yes. You're making your pledge.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
There is an accountability piece.
Yes. And we need to look at that. It's important. My education was totally free. I mean, it was not, free makes it sound like it was a gift, and it was a gift, but we paid for it with our taxes, as we do here. I got a good education, and every kid should have that as an option.
Because if they don't, then they can't engage in their government.
And we have to make education affordable for everybody too.
Yes, and how do we raise good citizens and do that all at the same time? And I think we can. How
do we encourage students to be supportive of each other? Because that's how they then move forward. We tend to teach students to be competitive.
Right, so we're back to that relationship of what is the context of that relationship? Is it that I can only do well if you do poorly?
Right.
And that is not the context of what we have observed over millennia of human interaction and connection. It's we do better together than we do apart. So yeah.
And working as part of a team, again, is not something that's taught very often, except in sports where that team is supposed to crush another team.
Right.
Which is a little crazy. There are other ways of being part of a strong team. We unfortunately are about out of time.
Well, that's went so quickly.
Yeah, it always does.
Thank you so much for asking me on.
Would you come back sometime?
I would be happy to.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again.